Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
3, 2, 1. We're back, Julie. It is July the 21st. We've been on the road now for 15 days.
Yes, we're starting week 3.
And I have to say, I was just on the new travel website. Our team created a new website. You guys should click on it and check it out. The link is in the show description, where it shows all the stops, all the places we've been, and all the places we're going. And I looked at the map, and I looked at all the places we've already been. And when you look at it on a map, we must be insane.
Yes. It does look a little wackadoodle, doesn't it?
I can't believe all the places we've already been and all the people we've already seen.
I know.
It's been a lot of fun.
It's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yes.
So we left, you'll have to remind me because I'm the driver. I just follow what Nav and you tell me to do.
2 weeks and 1 day ago.
Well, right. But I'm saying yesterday we were in Boise,
Yep.
and today we are in
Kennewick, Washington, meeting with the Kenmore team, and then proceeding all the way up north to Blaine, Washington, which is in the very far northwestern corner, almost to Canada.
And then we're going down to
I think we're going to hopefully see our friends a little bit further south, back into Washington, and then headed to the Redwood National Park.
That's right. And so I can say, from having driven not too far distance from Boise to where we are, Kennewick, Washington, that is one boring as hell drive.
There's no shortage of land. I look around, it's so many times I've said to myself, well, there's no inventory. There's not a house to be found, but there's definitely no shortage of land. Very interesting. And you and I were talking about, the barriers that some builders have in terms of water rights and utilities.
Well, we're
and all the
guessing,
things that
right?
they have to
We don't
quote.
know.
But I believe it's Congress is looking at on purpose trying to lift some of those extra restrictions so that we can release some more new construction.
But let's talk. Just about what you just said. So
Sure.
we drove through Kennewick, Washington. We're going to visit with our longtime coaching clients, Lance and Karen Kenmore, which are pretty much the king and queen of real estate here in Kennewick,
Absolutely.
Washington. We're going to their office tomorrow and checking out, everything they've created. And it's funny, Julie, we started coaching them basically when they first got into real estate. And I don't even know how many years ago that was.
14 or 15 years ago, something
Yeah.
like that. And what's amazing about the Kenmore team is that in the land of also, low inventory, they sell in Tri-Cities. So it's not just Kennewick. They have lots of opportunity. But in the land of seriously low listing opportunity, they will do more than 400 sides this year. And I tease them all the time that they are the MLS, basically.
Well, but
now, some of that's new construction, but still, it's pretty amazing.
Well, you also, something interesting that we're talking about the Kenmores is their standing listing inventory is how much right now?
Usually right around 15 or less, with maybe up to half of that being lots new construction. So maybe 10 quote normal residential listings at any given time.
And I remember when I first started coaching Lance before Karen joined him in the business, and this was forever ago. But I remember that at that time the market was completely different. There was like here's how much I remember.
Sure.
Haverford nuclear power plant cleanup was going on here, and that actually, because there was all these the government was hiring all these people to come in here and clean up this nuclear power plant. There was no slowdown when the rest of the country was in complete housing crash mode. Kennewick, Washington was not. They escaped, and there was actually people moving here. Houses were selling in record time, so they didn't really suffer the housing crash.
No.
And now they're getting obviously the benefit. But it is interesting of this housing boom. But it is interesting when you drive around. There is just tons of land everywhere. That's where you were thinking about. Well,
Sure.
Why isn't there more new construction? You were suggesting it's maybe water rights or But I'll tell you what just from what I've been reading and paying attention. If you did notice when we were coming in town, the houses that were being built up on the the massive hills and whatnot they were huge houses.
Yes.
And so what that tells me is that it's not necessarily a function. Well, land costs and all the rest of it, but it's probably because the building cost is just gotten to the point where the builders have to build more expensive houses, which is what
to
we're
make
talking
any
about.
margin.
To make enough margin, right? Because on the lesser expensive homes, because things have gotten so expensive, and that they can't do it. So you're just seeing multi-million-dollar properties getting built if you're going to spec at all, speculate on a new construction. And then who were we talking with yesterday? Oh, We were talking with somebody else that was a husband of one of our EXP agents that we met with yesterday or the day before. I don't remember. It's all blending. And he owns a restaurant, and he was talking about the fact that he's had to increase. Like I was asking him about the inflation on his raw costs, on his food and cups and all the rest of it. And he said that's not even the bad part. He said the bad part's labor. He said what he's having to pay for labor right now is extraordinary. And I said, so how much of this cost can you pass to your customers? And he gave me for examples. He said, well, this food product that we've been selling forever, it was a milkshake or whatever the heck it was. I don't remember. But he said he's had to increase the cost by 50%. He's had to increase the cost on a steak by this much because, I think he said he had a bar and grill basically or something. And so I said, well, at what point does your customer stop coming because they can't afford to eat there anymore? He goes, I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't gotten to the point where we're starting to lose business. But he said, I am worried about that.
That's right.
So that actually goes to inflation, which you and I are experiencing firsthand when we're on this sojourn in 22 different states and 60 days and seeing all these different markets and people. Inflation, man, it is real.
It is real. And especially in the hospitality market.
Yeah.
Now, probably some of that is the cost of labor and other things, but I think probably the hotels may be trying to make up for some lost COVID revenue in addition to all this. I read somewhere yesterday that the average cost of a hotel has gone up year over year between 8 and 18%.
You mean hotel room?
Hotel room, sorry, depending on where you are in the country. And I think we're probably experiencing that. I mean, I haven't compared every single hotel year over year that we've checked into, but it does seem to be more.
But there's a lot of people listening to us right now because they're wanting us to, pass along our travel experiences. Sure. And so here's the other thing we're noticing. A lot of these hotels we're going to, because we're going to like basically a new one every day.
Practically,
You're having you're booking them usually 2 or 3 days advance in the car while we're rolling, right? And it's very hard to find rooms. And you're able to, you say when you're on Travelocity or whatever and you're booking rooms, you literally see available rooms go from 3 to 0 while
in
you're
front
looking
of me.
at the pictures.
I've had the room I was trying to book disappear on me while I was mid checkout. Like I hadn't yet put in my expiration date on the card, and then it said no longer available.
And you've also had it, I've heard you receive several phone calls where you did book the room, and then the hotel itself called and said Travelocity was behind, and we have no rooms, and the computer was wrong.
That's right. Same with some of our Yellowstone tours and the other things that we wanted to do. People are really booked. I was impressed with one, we've been talking about Adam, our Yellowstone guide, is that they had called me and said, nope, we're totally booked on the tour. And I was disappointed. And I said, well, give me my refund back because I had booked it online. And whoever was running that show called me back and said, I just talked to our owner and he said he doesn't like to turn business away. We've got other guides on call. Well, we'll make it work for you.
But let's talk about that, though, because there was a finer point to that as well. And the finer point is he doesn't want to turn business away because you were paying $800 for a day for 3 people for a 1-day tour. And I can guarantee you that normally is probably at least half that. Right. And they were able to raise prices because, Tim and Julie were willing to pay it.
Because we were willing to do it and because there's scarcity and because we're going to be there for 1 day.
Exactly. Well, so anyway.
But so, both things can be happening at once. Here's a guy that's motivated to make us happy and at the same time is monetizing the scarcity.
Sure. Well, so, that's the reason that it is kind of an interesting time in history. And if you care to, track the economic stuff, which Julie and I do, just for the sake of making sure we're protecting our, business and protecting all of you guys, giving you guys the best advice we can, is that there is definitely an increase in demand. The increase in demand is what we're describing. That's where, a hotel costs twice as much as it normally does. That's increase in demand. And then when you see an increase in labor prices, that's also because of, it's because there's a shortage of supply of labor. And the shortage of supply of labor is being affected by a lot of people who are getting extended unemployment. And I'm not going to make this a political thing. Trust me, we don't want to ever talk about politics on our podcast. But it's fascinating, all the interesting little levers that are being pushed and pulled and prodded that are causing a real interesting effect on, consumer behavior. People's behavior is definitely, well, here's the other thing that you and I are sensing. We've heard people in these town squares and these, places we've gone, which has really been fantastic being around so
Yeah,
many,
for sure.
different people. Well, we could talk forever about like how when you go to just like Boise, people looked one way, and then we went to Kennewick, Washington, they looked another way, and you go to another little town in between.
Taos, New Mexico is extra different.
Yeah, old hippies in Taos, New
Yeah.
Mexico. But then you see these other markets too, where people like you'll start seeing silly things, but all of a sudden, men in a certain market, for example, I noticed this, will start having like the same haircut, but like 5 hours later, you never see that haircut.
Right.
Women will dress different ways, and not just different. The climates are virtually the same.
Yeah, or some towns like everyone has a tattoo, like almost
Yeah.
their babies have tattoos, and then you drive 2 or 3 hours away and it's not like that. So yeah, towns definitely have their different flavors and cultures,
Yeah,
which is cool,
It's
to
totally
all
cool.
peacefully coexist. And if we were in Europe and we had driven this far, we probably would have had to learn 10 or 12 different languages and a bunch of different street signs, switch sides of the road, who knows. But here, I think it's interesting that you can go different places and have similar stores and similar things, and yet other things are so different. I think it's pretty fascinating.
Well, too, you mentioned stores. When we were going into different grocery stores, the types of products that were being
Oh, yeah.
sold were also different in different markets.
For sure.
And some of the markets that were more, well, we were just in Boise, right? In Boise, it looks to me like that's a city that's becoming something. And there were people that were exercising,
More
but they're
fitness, more health conscious.
right. It looks to me
nutrition.
like it's a market that's becoming like maybe an Austin or
Yeah, it
it's-
felt like a baby Austin.
it did. It felt like Austin felt maybe like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, it's cool.
Yeah, it's all
fun.
good.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to keep on posting our daily updates of where we're traveling to and from. And if we don't post a lot that day, it's just because we're doing something boring like driving from Boise to Kennewick, Washington. Tomorrow, we're driving up to see Glenn Sanford. In what community does he live in?
Blaine, Washington.
Blaine, Washington. He lives right on the you guys should look to see where this is on a map. He lives literally right on the edge of the United States and Canada. I bet you from his backyard, you can, basically grab some maple syrup.
Right, probably.
But
I know when we were going to go to Canada, but the Ken Moore's informed us that Canada's border is closed for now, so we won't be, maybe we'll just throw a rock over there and say we were there.
But speaking of which, we were also going to go up to Red Lodge in Montana, and we veered off
Yes.
that because there's fires that are happening up in, and we've seen the
Montana.
smoke
Oh, yeah.
that's happening all over this part of the country. Even when we were in Yellowstone, you could see
Very thick smoke.
Yeah,
so.
we have these great binoculars, and you think it's fog, and you think it's just the whatever, and then you look through these great binoculars, and you look miles away or however far they, and you can see it's smoke, and it's all pouring down from Montana.
Yes.
So we didn't. For those of you who were in Montana in that area, we had to change direction because we were told by many of you that that's a bad direction to go, and we really wanted to go to Red Lodge because
I
we
know. I miss
love
Red
Red Lodge,
Lodge.
Montana. But we can't. We will next time somehow, and
Yes.
we'll let you guys know.
We'll put it on the map.
But in the interim, listen, we're going to get to our points we started yesterday about, surprise housing slowdown. So we're going to talk more about that in a second. But we would love to meet with some of you, all of you, and the best way to know where we're going next and the best way to communicate with us, frankly, is through Instagram. It's Tim and Julie Harris. And just find us on Instagram. We're posting videos and pictures and whatnot, and message us through Instagram. Frankly, the reason we're using Instagram is because it's easier to keep that separated from just normal business things, of which we're trying to do as little as possible while we're
trying
on the
to.
road.
Yes.
Yes. So we are talking about surprise housing slowdown, and today is part 3. And Julie, you can just jump right into
Yes.
point number 6.
Okay, we're going to do that. And then we're also going to roll into our discussion about what even is a balanced market, because we know that there's a whole generation of you who have not actually lived through something that sounds even close to that.
Yep.
So, surprise housing slowdown. This is our last point. If you missed out, catch up on the past 2 podcasts. Point number 6, things to monitor, right? So how do you know whether your market is changing? And it's possible that your market, if you're selling in Austin, it's going to act differently than maybe Boise or Miami. So you've got to monitor your own backyard. Point number 6, monitor the new construction starts in the areas you sell. NewHomeSource.com can help you with this. They cover most of the country by zip code, and you can map it out. But you can also simply Google new homes in Kennewick, Washington, for example, or new homes in, type in your zip code, and then change your zip codes or your town names until you find out what's going on. Who's building what and where? It's your job to find out. Now, some MLSs list new construction, some don't. And even if your MLS does, that doesn't mean they will have all of the new construction, because not all of the builders will put it in the MLS. So you still need to do your own homework regardless. Now, according to a report out this week, new housing starts are up by 19.4% year over year, which is the highest level since 2006. That's good news. When you see more homes being built, your market may be adjusting because supply is going to start to at least get closer to the demand. Does that make sense?
It does. You know, it's interesting. I remember you and I were doing podcasts and writing articles about the fact that there wasn't enough new construction to meet demand. We started writing those articles like 2010, 2011.
Yes.
And back then, builders weren't building for a different set of reasons. But now it's for all the things we've talked about on the podcast. But that really the best cure, the most, I think, realistic way that you're going to increase the availability of homes is going to be through new construction. There needs to be, because the demand is, the existing home inventory obviously is not enough to meet the demand of all the people that want to buy a house. And new construction solves multitudes of problems, one of which being obviously, hypothetically, if someone's moving up to a new construction house for sale, they're going to sell their old house. And
Which
that's what really is going to have
more
to happen.
inventory, right? And it also, I always like new construction for other reasons, just kind of selfish reasons. Number one, you don't have inspection nightmares, generally speaking. And number two, it buys your seller, who, is also your buyer, more time to get their house on the market. It eases some of that stress of the double move.
So for those of you who are newer in the business or have just never really, focused in on this, you got to understand that most new construction is not going to be in the MLS. You have to think about the different varieties of new construction. I'll give you, for example, when Julie and I were selling real estate, you had the big national builders like MI Homes, Dominion Homes. You guys have your DR Hortons and all these big guys, right? And then you had the medium-sized builders. And in our marketplace, the medium-sized builders, they might put some of their things in the MLS, but for the most part, they won't. And these were the guys that were building in the price ranges that were usually in the slightly upper end price range.
Toll Brothers would be an example.
Exactly. Well, no, Toll Brothers was a big national. I'm talking about like the mostly Italian names that were building in Columbus, Ohio.
Right.
Yeah, those
Romanelli and Hughes.
Romanelli and Hughes, for example. And those guys would build. Now, how do you find out about all of this? You'd have to go to the BIA, your local builders association. You're going to have to find out who the builders are. And the BIA usually gives not just all the contact information, but tells you how many houses they sold last year, how many houses they spec'd on, what price ranges, what markets they specialize in. And then what you need to do is get on the phone, and if you have, especially it's an extra, powerful, if you've got a buyer that's looking in one of the price ranges in one of the communities where these builders build, you then can say, hey, I've got a buyer that's looking. Do you have anything that you're building? And what you will find, and this is how, frankly, this is one of the best ways to find secret inventory, is you'll find a lot of the builders, not the big builders always have specs. The medium-sized builders have specs, but you have to call them and ask about them.
You're assuming they know what a spec is.
A spec is basically where a builder is building a house speculating that there's going to be a buyer that buys it. In a market like this, they're not going to put it for sale publicly. They're going to get it to the point where it's almost done, where basically all the selections are done because they do not want to have to jack around with making a bunch of changes to placate a buyer. So normally what happens in a very strong seller's market like this, the specs are in essence done. The only thing left to do is the landscaping, and they don't even want to hear from your buyer about what the landscaping should be. Right. The builder just knows what they're going to do. They're going to build it and take it. It is what it is, but you got to call these guys. And you got to find out what they have that's going in the ground. And sometimes you might find that the builders are actively looking for land for sale. And if you come across a land listing or something that might be possibly available to subdivide, and you call those medium-sized builders that are not the big builders, because the medium-sized builders where they're always hungry is looking for lots to build on, either to spec or to buy the land and then sell to a prospective buyer and then build a custom home on the land. And in a market like this, land is very hard to find, and the big builders are gobbling up all virtually everything. So if you've got a parcel of land that might be subdividable, you take that to your medium-sized builder, and you're not just going to you're obviously going to get a sale from selling the land, but you're also going to get, hypothetically, the sale of the listings that get built on that land. And I'll give you guys an example. Most of you, I don't know, Julie, is it called patio homes? You're all over the country? I don't think so.
Zero lot line homes, patio homes, these cluster homes.
Right.
There's different versions of that. It's, small lots with nice houses next to each other.
When Julie and I were selling real estate in the 90s into the very early 2000s, there was the big trend where we sold real estate in Columbus, Ohio, was towards these patio homes. And these patio homes were mostly smaller, zero lot line. They were detached homes, but very small property, very small land. amounts, but the houses themselves were really fancy. And what these builders were doing, and the way Julie, frankly, and I worked with these builders, is these builders were buying these houses that were built in the 50s and the 60s that maybe had 2 or 3 acre lots, and they're subdividing the snot out of those 2 or 3 acre lots, and they're then building up these patio homes. And that was one of the, you have to, obviously, in that example, we were creating the inventory. We knew builders wanted it.
Yep.
Think out of the box like this, guys, and you'll create inventory, and you'll do transactions, and you'll be able to transcend the normal, agent blight of lack of listings.
Sure. Well, there's a second way a spec home can happen. And this is why you've got to talk to all of your builders and find out what they've got coming up. It's when somebody was in contract building it and they backed out for whatever reason. They didn't get their financing. They lost their job. They didn't like the product. They had a conflict with the builder, whatever. Maybe they got relocated. They're not going to live in your town anymore. But this type of thing comes back on the market all of the time. The builder then puts it back into their inventory and turns it into a spec house. So, back when we were selling, the builders would send their pet list of agents. They had a spec home show up, and back then they would fax it or email it to you, and they would say, here's the deal. And sometimes there were even bonuses on those if you got it in contract that week or that month. But you would never know about it if you weren't in with the builder.
Now, the secret to working with builders is you've got to be, whether it's the big build company and you're dealing with build reps, on-site salespeople, or whether you're dealing directly with the builder himself, you've got to make sure you've got a really good relationship with them. With the big builders, there's a more of a systematic way of going about it. It's called registering your buyer. And that is essentially a form that's filled out where the buyer says, yes, I'm working with, Julie, and Julie's going to be my agent. In those cases, those of you who've been in the business for a while, you know how sweet these deals are. You can basically so when Julie and I were selling real estate, just to make this very practical, and the way we coach all of our agents to do it, if you have any buyer agent staff, for example, and some of you are able to run, because we coach you to run profitable teams with profitable buyer agent staff, and I'll tell you what the key is, the buyer agents themselves have to actually generate leads. They can't just wait around like hungry, pissed off birds waiting for leads to be dropped in their beaks. But one of the things that you would do is when you get a buyer that's in the price range of prospective new construction, you have to take that buyer by all of the most likely new build reps, models, and then register that buyer, because here's what happens is that buyer could go back on, another day by themselves without you, and then go into contract on a house that you just, on a model, model home, that you met the build rep. You walked in there. Hey, Marcy, this is, Bob and Sally. They want to check out your model. They're looking at new construction, and they're just seeing what is out there. Then let the new construction rep do their thing. You don't have to say anything. You just kind of sit back, have some coffee. They're going to go on a tour. They're going to answer questions. Bob and Sally leave with you. You go to the next one. You go to the next one. You go to the next one. A week later, you get an excited email or call from Bob and Sally. We're in contract with that first builder that you introduced us to, but because you physically brought them there and you registered those buyers with that builder, you then are guaranteed your commission. And that's one of the, new construction commission checks are fantastic because there's nothing to do once the house is in contract.
And guess what? A lot of times you don't have to compete either, which is nice. And Tim, a lot of builders are tightening up on that, and they're saying you have to be physically present on the first introduction.
Oh, yeah.
So this is another great thing. Yeah, with the BIA guide, you have those contacts. You know whether it's going to be direct through the builder. Do they have a sales team? Do they have a model, or don't they have a model? What is the skinny? Because it's different from builder to builder. Some of them have you register online. Sometimes you've got to set up an appointment. It's not obvious. It's not like looking at a listing in the MLS where you've got agent-to-agent comments saying, here's how you do things. You do have to make a little bit more of an effort to do the new construction drill.
And the obvious side benefit of that is if you are helping a new build rep sell a property, they're getting commission on that as well. And not to mention it's their salary job. That if they have, let's say the next day they have 2 buyers walk in that want to purchase a new construction house, but they've got a house to sell and they don't have an agent relationship, that new build rep, again, assuming you've kept a good relationship with them, is going to possibly send you that listing referral. And it's very rare that you come across, especially in the big builders whose new home build reps are licensees. In other words, they're not allowed to do business outside of their particular model. They're not allowed to take resale listings,
for example. They're an employee of the builder, essentially.
Exactly. So that is a fantastic way for you to build another, though albeit not predictable or duplicatable, but another possible lead spoke that doesn't cost you anything.
By the way, for our Premier Coaching members who are listening, we have a whole new construction site where we part
Section.
of our website where we teach you from the easiest thing to the most advanced, which we just covered in about 10 minutes. So we just did the 35,000 flyover on that. But we do have a big section, and we talk about how to work with builders pretty regularly in our Facebook Live sessions.
Well, so it's clear that the new builder and the new construction stuff is going to continue to surge in most major markets.
Well, look, it's up 20% year over year, which is the highest increase since 2006.
Right, exactly.
So
how, Julie, tell the listeners, what is a balanced market?
Okay.
Because like you said earlier, most of them have never experienced a balanced market.
I know. It sounds like this radical, strange thing. So what is the definition of a balanced market? We're going to look at 7 different indicators. We're only going to do the first 2 today so that you'll know it when you see it, or you'll at least know when you're getting closer to it. Now, here's a warning. Point number 2 is pretty analytical, so get your pencils sharpened, okay? All right, let's see. Where are we? Currently, we have a seller's market. There is more demand than there is supply. This causes, as you well know, multiple offers, over listing price sales, and not enough choices for buyers. Okay, so that's what you've been experiencing for a long time for many of you, almost all of you. In a buyer's market, it's the opposite. That's what we had during the Great Recession and the housing crash from 2007 to 2012. There were foreclosure bus tours because there was so much going on that was opposite of what you're experiencing now.
But it is important, Julie's making a subtle point here, that if you've only been in the business since really, say, 2009 or 2010, which is basically statistically it's about all of you. We have tens of thousands of agents who listen to our podcast every single day. It's the #1 listened to daily podcast in at least the United States. Now, I know statistically that, again, most of you have never sold in any market other than a hot seller's market. So when Julie says balanced market, the other side of a balanced market, if you can imagine a pendulum swinging, right, is a buyer's market. A buyer's market is something that many of you have never experienced before. When a buyer's market starts to take hold, essentially everything about how you do business, essentially how you generate leads and the nature of the relationships you have, it completely changes.
It's all opposite.
It's opposite, exactly.
It would be like the Twilight Zone for them, or Stranger Things for our younger crowd. It's just like a totally different world. Now, in between the hot seller's market and the swing of the pendulum over to the buyer's market is what we call a balanced market.
Right.
So we're going to define what that means.
And we're nowhere near there now, by the way.
Right. We're just seeing maybe some little cracks. So what's a balanced market? Economists, NAR, and analysts all define this most simply as when supply and demand are equal. And then we're going to do 7 different ways to tell when this has happened. All right, so first is number 1, prices remain stable or grow modestly, usually in sync with inflation. Now, much of our career was like that. Yes, houses were rising in price, but it was pretty much in step with inflation, ranging anywhere, depending on the economist you talk to, between 3 and 8% per year. Not what we've seen lately, which has been between 12 and 24%, which is unprecedented increases. So point number 1, prices start to stabilize. Now, that's very different than price crashing. Some of you will overreact and think that the world is coming to an end because you're only getting 10% year over year.
So it's our belief, and this is based on not just what we want to be true, which is certainly that's an element of it, but also the things we studied in other markets we've seen, like Japan, for example, where you have a lot of inflation that takes hold, and then what happens is the prices don't return to the pre-inflation rates. So what we believe is going to happen is that what you're seeing is a new normal set in to housing pricing, and it's going to be hopefully followed by an increase to some extent in the cost, in labor and the rest of it. But without having this be a podcast about inflation, here's what I want you to have as the takeaway from my point. Is that the prices of homes probably will not, and I'm hedging by saying probably will not decline in most major markets at all ever again, and that what you're dealing with is the resetting of housing values that's possibly based on this money printing frenzy that's been going on in earnest since 2008.
Yeah.
And so what you're seeing is inflation take hold. Inflation's obviously in real estate. You're going to see more inflation in real estate for at least the rest of this year, probably part of next year, and then rolling in after that, you're going to see it return to more historical norms. Again, you have this perfect storm of things that are happening in the market, which are causing houses to continue to inflate, increase in value, appreciate, whatever words you want to use. And we did a series of podcasts about this before. You can go to iTunes, Stitcher, Amazon Play, Spotify, where our podcast is everywhere. So just listen to the podcast we did on why there is no housing crash coming, and then you'll understand that there is no housing crash coming, and what we're looking at, in essence, is the great reset of home values.
Yes, a bit of an adjustment, potentially, you would call it. So point number 2, in terms of explaining a balanced market, point number 2, and here's the warning that we may get into the weeds on this, and you can stop me at any point. Point number 2, economists agree that a 6-month supply, and I know that sounds radical, a 6-month supply, what does that even mean, of homes indicates a balanced market, and that when inventory grows, this is I saw a bunch of charts with like little seesaws demonstrating this, right? So that when inventory grows to more than a 6-month supply, it becomes a buyer's market, and less than a 6-month supply, they call it a seller's market. So for all of you, calculator lovers, I looked up, how do you even define that, right? We were talking about absorption rate. We're talking about supply. How do you do the math on that? Okay. And we've done monkey math on this before, but this is like, maybe.
So just listeners,
warning.
If you're regular podcast listeners, you can tell Julie's had a lot of time on the road to really drill down on details for the podcast.
Okay. So you may want to take a pencil out or your typing fingers. A month's supply of inventory, and economists call that MSI, month supply of inventory, MSI, helps determine a buyer's, balanced, or seller's market. MSI is an estimate of how long it will take for all of the market's homes to be sold or absorbed based on how many homes are currently on the market and the rate of homes in the past that have sold. That's the absorption rate. I know this is sounding all wonkish, right? But absorption rates, what does that mean? The total of homes sold in the last year divided by the months in the year, which is 12. Therefore, take the amount of current inventory, take the number of homes sold in the past year divided by 12. I'm going to do an example, don't worry. Absorption rate is a percentage of the 12-month average sale.
Gotta hold that
to the total current listings, showing the absorption percentage of the inventory. Okay. So don't have a heart attack. We're doing, serious math here. Let's say that 341 homes sold over the last 12 months. Okay. 341 divided by 12 is 28.4 homes sold per month. With current active inventory of, say, 476 homes, so 28.4 of 476 is 5.97% of the inventory. So the absorption rate would be 5.8% of the inventory per month. Okay. So how long will it take to sell 476 homes? By dividing 476 by that number, 28.4, it would take 16 months to sell all of those homes, which would equal a buyer's market. This is the month's supply of inventory, or MSI. Now that is the, I would call it the advanced economist annoying way of figuring things out. But when you're, say, on a listing appointment, let's make this practical, because you and I used to do this all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this varies from price range to price range. Let's say that tomorrow's listing appointment is on a $350,000 standard issue house that everybody wants, right? You look it up in the MLS, and last month there were 5 listings for $350,000, and all of them sold, and you see that all of them went over list price. That's like a 1-month supply, right? There were 5, all 5 sold. There's probably more demand because you saw it all going over list, right? But tomorrow's listing appointment, let's say, is on a $1.5 million property. And you look, and right now you have 10 active ones that you're competing with, and only 3 sold last month. We have a totally different conversation there, don't you? Make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So you've got to watch these things. And it's not going to be the same in every price range and every MLS code.
Let's use a practical modern example. We were in Miami, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were just, as we always do, looking at.
That's our last official point, by the way.
Oh, I don't.
But
But
that's okay.
I don't want to step on your last official point.
It's good.
We'll get to it. Go ahead.
That was it. I'm just saying now you can talk about Miami.
Well, so Miami, Miami is one of these, markets. It's one that Julie and I pay attention to, because it's a bellwether market. It gives you, it's an early indicator, early warning signs of what's going to happen for the rest of the country happen in Miami. And we specifically, when were we there, Julie? What month?
In December.
Okay, so in December, we were looking at the MLS, and we were looking at the number of unsold condos for sale. And it was similar to Manhattan, though Manhattan is finally turning a corner. And so you were seeing in some cases, like, so the days in the market, what you have to do is in markets where there's been lots of expireds, like in Miami, you have to go back and you have to track you have to add up the days in the market for all the times it's been listed, not just the last time it's been listed.
More complicated.
Yeah. And you have to do a little bit of homework, and listing agents sometimes do clever things to try to, make the days in the market go away. So you're going to have to be, you're going to have to be really wise in how you go about this. And of course, we teach you how to do this in our coaching program. But what you see in the days in the market in Miami, I remember you and I found some listings, and we were able to basically, we know how to do it online and figure out what the original list date was. There are properties that have been for sale for years.
Yeah. Some of them were even brand new.
Right. And then
now these were condos we're talking about.
Sure. Condos, towers, right?
Yeah.
It's just it's oversaturated.
Sure.
And then not even maybe 45 minutes, maybe a half hour away from where those buildings were, you'd have houses that were staying on the market for like 22 seconds.
Yeah, completely different. This is why we've warned you on previous podcasts. Let's say that a news report comes out saying that, Miami has an average sale price, things are selling in 45 days or less. Well, unless you drill down and know that was houses,
right?
You might go on a condo listing appointment and say, well, I'd expect this to sell in 45 days or less. And then it's going to expire on you because you only had a 60-day listing agreement, and you did the mistake because you didn't do your research.
It's funny too. When we were in Miami, we were speaking to obviously agents. That's why we were there, and we were telling them that what they should be doing now is doing what the opposite of what other people are doing, and those agents should be going into those buildings. And they, the condo buildings, and they should be hunting the expireds, and they should start to get market share when everyone on all the other realtors. But it's like what's happening in Manhattan, right? I mean, Manhattan is now slowly starting to turn back to a more balanced market. It's going to take years to sell off the excessive inventory. Again, there was an oversaturation of new condos or new townhomes and new whatevers.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what's happened in Miami, and that's happened in some other markets too, in Arizona. But if you're a wise agent, you should definitely consider building a long-term spoke. And if I were in Miami, I tell you right now, there's some sweet buildings that have great views, that are great sale prices. Sure. You can go in there and start calling the expireds, doing what we teach you guys to do in our coaching program, and you will start picking up some of these listings. Yes, some of them will stay on the market for maybe a long damn time, but when the market starts to turn, you're going to have a ton of inventory, and the inventory is going to be easier to get because most agents have convinced themselves that the properties will never sell, so they're not even pursuing them.
Right.
Oftentimes, the smartest move is to do with the opposite of what everyone else is doing.
Well, let me be a little bit agent-centric to add to your point as well. One of the issues with a hot seller's market is that you take a listing and it sells before you have a time to lead generate from your listing, right? Which is the whole point of the magic number is you build up your listing inventory, and buyers are never a problem. You start to self-generate. You get somebody that wants to buy the house. They've got a house to sell. That's your next listing. And so let's say that you do go after condos, maybe some expireds. Okay, great. If it takes 60 days to sell or even 90 days to sell, most of these guys listening are like, that would be like something I don't even understand. It could take that long. But you've got to look at the silver lining. You're probably going to be the one that sells it. And while you have it for sale, you have an opportunity to provide value to the seller, to have open houses, to lead generate, to do, videos about that, whatever, your game du jour is. Whereas in a super hot seller's market, you didn't have time to do any of that.
Well, so you just teed me up to offer them the treasure map. So if you guys, the real estate treasure map basically is it's not basically, it is your fill in the blank business and life plan. The real estate, the magic number that Julie just referenced, that's part of what you learn how to complete or understand as part of doing the real estate treasure map. Just text the word success to 47372. Text the word success to 47372. Just go ahead and do that now. And you don't just get the real estate treasure map, but you get 7, maybe even 8 different books. These aren't books that are for sale anywhere. These are books that we created purposely and intentionally to help you guys build your real estate businesses. And you get these for free. Just text the word success on your phone. Go ahead and do it now to 47372. And we'll text you back a link to download the books. Nothing more to it than that. And you will be offered an opportunity to speak with one of our new member coaches about our coaching program. This is the perfect time to level off for today.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow, we're hoping to have an interview to share with you guys with Glenn Sanford. It'll be tomorrow or the following day. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if you guys are interested in talking to Julie and I about EXP, we are formally applying for the job of being your EXP sponsor. And it's been great to run into all of our EXP partners and all of our coaching clients on the road and getting all the messaging from all of you guys. Again, we're learning places to go and not to go based on what you're telling us. There was, like I said, we didn't go up to Montana because so many of you told us not to. I really appreciate that because we definitely were going to go. Yeah. Any other tips, please do send them to us on Instagram. And the way to find us on Instagram is just Tim and Julie Harris. Very simple. In the meantime, you guys have a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you on the show tomorrow.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows, and until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.